Hello, hello. You know, that awkward moment where you're waiting for people to jump into your stream, but you don't quite know exactly what to say. That is the moment in which I find myself right now. So, hello, everybody. Hello, all you eventual people who might hop in here. Hopefully, it happens rather sooner than later. That would be nice. This is not going to be a super long stream. I do have to basically keep it punctuated at less than an hour. I have to report home promptly at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time so that I can go to dinner with my family. Start the weekend off properly. Hello to both of you who just hopped in here. My screen tells me there's 2 people in here. Hello! I would love to know if you'd like to pop a message into the chats. I would love to know how you are doing. Would love it. Whoever just liked the stream, thank you for smashing that like button. Thank you very much. I am desperate for topics to talk about, so if you guys just want to dive right in and ask a question or just make a statement in the chat, you're welcome to. I would certainly appreciate it. Man, it is pretty hot. It is pretty hot outside right now, and I'm faced with this dilemma under which I don't want to blast the AC, which would ruin my audio, but I also don't want to boil alive. So I'm not quite sure what the happy medium is. Anybody could tell me in the chat whether it sounds bad right now. If you can hear, supposedly this microphone, I have this lavalier microphone. I don't know if you can see it right there. Supposedly this lavalier microphone is kind of supposed to be good with like reducing ambient background noise and stuff like that. But obviously, you don't really know until you put it to the test. So looks like both of the people who are in here have now left. If the 2 of you ever see your way to watching this stream ever again, thank you. Thank you for joining me, however brief your stay was. I do appreciate you stopping by. Thank you. Open up the chat. Yep, still no messages. Not exactly score 1 for the ego. 2 minutes, 47 seconds in. And 1 like, which I'm very grateful for, don't get me wrong. But 0 viewers and no messages in the chat. Not exactly a giant ego boost. Perhaps I didn't really hype up this stream very much. I mean, I put out a post on YouTube yesterday. I didn't post anything on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Discord. I just kind of put out that one thing on YouTube yesterday. I don't know how many likes it got, so I've been a little bit slacking when it comes to hyping up the live streams. Hello, it looks like a couple of people have joined in. Hi, how are you? Not a rhetorical question. I really want you, if you can, if you're willing to, please type in the chat. Let me know how you are doing, what you would like to talk about. I would love to have a conversation with you. And it looks like one of the 2 people who just climbed in has already bounced. Love the talk with Professor Dave. Just watched it. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I appreciate that. Very cool. Yeah, it's strange. I literally just fired an email to him yesterday. It was like really just kind of a shot in the dark. I did not think he would respond and be willing to give me the time of day. But he's like, yeah, I'll oblige if it's just something, quick that you want to put on your channel and blah, blah, blah. He's like, when do you want to do it? And I'm like, I can make myself available at any time. I can literally do it tonight. And he's like, okay, yeah, tonight works. So that all happened very quickly and very unexpectedly. And I think it was a decent, I think it was a pretty good conversation. There are moments where I hear myself talking and it's just the most cringe-worthy. I say the word like so many times. I say the phrase, so many times. It's probably because I'm just maybe, I don't know, kind of nervous. Like I got some jitters. I kind of get in my own head a lot. There's a little bit of anxiety floating around, especially for someone like me who is very inexperienced doing any kind of like publicized interview. I've done interviews before, like not where I'm currently working, but at my previous job. I was kind of responsible for hiring some interns, and so I've interviewed them. So that, like, my interview experience is very limited. But I'm definitely glad to hear, Kathy, that you enjoyed my conversation with Dave Farina, aka Professor Dave Explains. And if there's anybody else in this stream who would like to check that out, that would be much appreciated. I thought it was a very interesting conversation. Seems like a good dude. Obviously very smart, very hardworking, and very, like, he has obviously like good marketing, good social media strategy. The way he's been able to grow his audience in less than 6 years is very, very impressive. So, big kudos and lots of high praise for him for that. So, yeah. Yep. You did great. The interview took some strange turns, flat earthers and so on. Yeah. He, that seems to be like, he doesn't just make educational content. He's kind of branching out, trying to climb some new mountains, and he, is trying to sort of be one of the pushbackers against a lot of false narratives. I mean, I really don't have a skin in the whole flat Earth game, and I don't know. It just doesn't really. There was this one thing I saw, some social media, like, I think it was a tweet. It was like the Flat Earth Society issue. Like, they sent out a tweet, and what they tweeted was, the Flat Earth Society has like hundreds of thousands of members all over the globe. I just thought that was hilarious, very ironic. But yeah, but that, I mean, yeah, the talk did take some interesting turns, but I think that's what makes it cool. I think, like I said in the interview with him, I only had like 2 questions sort of written down, and if you watch it again, you'll see me sort of like scramble in my brain to try to come up with more questions. Like, I'm just such a shitty interviewer. I don't have any experience with it at all. But I figured, like, what better way could you get the experience than to just kind of dive right in and start doing it? So, that's what I did. I have other sort of collaborative ventures with other chemistry YouTubers, sort of in the early processes of development. I'm not going to name drop anybody except for Guillotine Chemistry, because he's already left comments publicly about how he wants to collaborate. So I've been communicating with Guillotine Chemistry. We've got a very sort of interesting idea of how we're going to collaborate. Pretty unique, I would say, like just the method that we're going to implement to collaborate with one another, and sort of shoot praise to each other's channels, and try to share audiences and stuff like that. So I'm really, really excited about that. We're chatting in the DMs. Hopefully we can get on a video call soon, but he's got 4 kids. I've got a crazy daughter. Okay, she's not crazy, but she's very active. And, I have a wife who is just about to enter the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So a lot of crazy stuff. So where I'm going with that is that, it's kind of hard to like sit down and arrange a video call, especially when you're just bushed after, a day of hard work and, doing, fulfilling all your fatherly obligations and such. So yeah, lots of collaborative things in the works. I've definitely gone through the process of reaching out to a lot of other chemistry YouTubers because I think, getting their, understanding, like, being able to interview them, it's like sort of get their backstories, get their, unique sort of teaching philosophies and the attitudes that they have, and, how they got started and what keeps them motivated and all that stuff, like all that kind of stuff, like like learning why people do what they do, with these big educational YouTubers. It really, it's very fascinating to me. So I'm going to, as much as they are willing to participate, I am going to want to continue doing that in the future. So live chat. But yeah, thanks for the confidence boost, telling me that I did great, Kathy. I appreciate that. Thank you. Collaboration is awesome. Hopefully that will help your channel grow. Your presentations are so thought out. I will be using your videos in the fall, even if we are inside the class. Thanks. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before in the DMs, but you know, my offer still stands if you ever want to do like a group video call where like I could be on your board. You know, if I don't know if you have like the smart board or whatever, like I could be projected on your screen talking to your class. If you ever want to do something like that, I think it would be, you know, obviously I would keep it, you know, PG. You know, I wouldn't say anything, you know, vulgar or anything that wouldn't be acceptable in a public school classroom to your students. But if you were interested in something like that, the offer is on the table. I would love to, you know, I would love to do it. And who knows, maybe we could like, you know, record it and sort of publish it, you know, and it could be like some cool thing that, you know, that other people can watch too. I don't know, just kind of spitballing the idea. Ibrahim Iftikhar, I think, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but I do recognize the name. Hello, how are you doing, sir? Not a rhetorical question, I really want to know. How are you doing? I know there's a little bit of a delay between when I say something and when you view it, and therefore when you can respond to it. So it would be nice. Oh, cool. I'm glad I got the name right, man. Very cool. Do you have a nickname? Do you have like a name that you go by that might be like a little bit easier to pronounce for people like me who are just in a completely different part of the world, completely different culture? Because that would be helpful, you know. It's funny, there was you can call me Abraham. Okay, I definitely understand Abraham. I can definitely call you that. Cool. Abraham, how you doing, man? You still haven't answered my question. How are you? I'm just kidding. I would like to know how you're doing, though. Seriously. Because I notice you watch a lot of my content, so thank you, and you leave comments and stuff. Presumably, I can't tell who's liking what, but I'm assuming that you also leave likes, so thank you for all of your support, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support from everybody. Hello. My day has been a bit bad, though. I am so sorry to hear that. Well, the day is still pretty young, at least. What do I know? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, the day is young where I am. I am in the Eastern Daylight Time Zone. It is 5:10-ish, something around that, like 5:15 p.m. Over here where I am in South Carolina. So hopefully there is still time in your day, whatever time zone you're in, for things to turn around. And, you know, I'm sorry that things weren't going so well for you. To those of you who have just recently hopped in, thank you for hopping in. If you have anything you would like to add to this discussion, please, by all means, let me know. My uncle has contracted COVID-19. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That is pretty bad. Also, it's 10 p.m. Yeah, that's not a really good way to end the day, man. I'm sorry to hear that about your uncle. You know, I hope that he recovers well, unless, you know, he's super elderly or has some kind of underlying respiratory condition. I think, you know, from what I understand, most people are fine. It's only mild, though. Okay, yeah, so really the biggest problem, as I see it, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the biggest problem, you know, for someone who, you know, tests positive, but you know they're not going to die, is that they could spread it to other people, that, you know, they could spread it to someone who could die from it. But nevertheless, it's not a good thing to come down with the illness. So I am sorry to hear that, and I hope he recovers and gets into the negative test category as quickly as possible. So, okay, I am at a whopping 3 concurrent viewers. Thank you so much to all 3 of you. Up, and it just jumped down to 2. Wow, people don't really have super high attention spans, do they? I mean, that's something that I kind of already knew, you know, especially having taught high school for 2 years. Teaching high school is challenging, you know, with kids. You know, these kids today, I mean, I know that people say things like that a lot, but, you know, kids, I think kids are really overstimulated. You know, some of them, you know, have a movie on and a video game, and they're watching a video game stream all at the same time. And, you know, and then, they go to a classroom and then there's this douche in front of them on a whiteboard, trying to show them the periodic table and draw atoms on the board. It's like it's hard to really connect with and hook the kids in to keep their attention. I'm sure Kathy, who's a teacher, would back me up on that. One thing that I did find that was effective when I was teaching high school chemistry, and for those of you who are hardcore viewers of mine, if there are any, I don't know if there are, but one thing that I did do that really got like almost 100% engagement from my students was I wrote and performed a song in front of them with my guitar about thermochemistry. So if you look into my videos, I think there are actually 2 recordings, like 2 YouTube videos of me performing my thermochemistry song in front of my students. And if you listen closely, there's an earlier one and a later one. The later one is actually the higher production quality. I actually asked the AV club of the school to come in and use their higher end production equipment to film it. And where was I going with that? I just totally drew a blank. Yeah, I remember now. So if you listen to that version of the thermochemistry song if you listen to that very closely, you can actually hear the kids singing. You can hear. I mean, to be fair, that was my best class. People often say oh, you shouldn't play favorites. It's like, dude, nah, I think it had a lot to do with the class size. They were like the perfect class size. I think it was like 17 students in that class, which is not too small to the point where you can't get any discussion or debate or, any kind of back and forth between the students going. It's big enough for that, but it's also not so big that things just get out of control and you don't have enough resources, and, the experiments and labs are really hard to arrange because you don't have you don't have enough equipment for all of them. It's like the perfect class size, between 15 and 20, I think is a really, really good size. But I had classes with upwards of 30, 30, maybe even more than 30. I can't remember. It's been so long now, but yeah, 30 is huge for high school. Can we make it to 5 viewers? I sure hope so. Maybe with your help, if you spam everybody with a link to get in here, that'll help us. I'm just teasing. Please, you don't have to do that unless you want to. I'm not going to stop you, but hey. But yeah, I was talking about how I really got the kids engaged with this thermochemistry song, and the timing of that song was I timed the performance of that song in front of my students with the formal observation that my supervising administrator was doing on me, which is a requirement. It's kind of a big deal because in part it determines how much of a pay raise you're eligible for the following year and so on. It kind of goes on your permanent record as a teacher. So formal observations, formal evaluations are a big deal. And the supervising administrator, it could be the principal, it could be an assistant principal. In my case, it was one of the assistant principals was my supervising administrator. And the way that the formal observation works is that you schedule it, so you actually get to pick, for me, it was my 5th period class. They were my best class. So I schedule it to be for my 5th period class. So that's when he came in and, had his iPad and was, checking off all the boxes of what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. And I pull out my guitar and, I just had this mind dude, I'm going to smoke this guy. I'm going to just, dazzle him off of his feet, And I think I had a pretty good response. He actually, the assistant principal, literally pulled out his iPhone and started filming me with his phone. So I would challenge any other teacher at that school to, put on a lesson or anything, demonstration, engaging activity that would have the reach and spread and to capture the attention of your make such an impression on their supervising administrator that he, or she pulls out their own personal phone and starts filming it. So I kind of wear that with some pride. So Kathy said something in the chat. You seem like you were a great teacher. I know all the baggage junk that goes along, and I watched your video on being a former teacher. Yeah, Yeah, I didn't necessarily have like the formal training in like pedagogy and all that stuff, but what I had was like passion. I had passion by the shitload. And unfortunately, the public education environment is very toxic, and it just tends to squeeze all the passion. It just tends to rob people of their passion. They really want uniformity among all the teachers. They want children to have like almost the exact same sort of experience when they walk into a math class as they do when they walk into like a reading or an English class. And I disagree with that vehemently. I think children should have different, very, very different experiences when they walk into these different classrooms. And with me and public education, at least in the district and the school in which I taught in the state of Florida, it just was a very square peg and round hole type of situation. My personality, the way that I like to work, working from raw passion, not necessarily like complying with what other people want. I mean, and it used to be this way because my mom was a teacher, and she told me, like, in the last generation, they would hand you a teacher's edition of a textbook and say, go, here's your book. These are the standards. This is what you need to teach now. Let your creative juices, let everything you need to do to reach these kids, let it go and just dazzle us. And that's really how I wish it kind of worked today, but it doesn't work like that. There's much more bureaucracy. There's much more red tape. And this is something that I talked about in the video on what I said, kind of how my experience of being a teacher is that, they have these meetings that you attend, and they conduct the meeting. What they're trying to do is they're trying to like model how, your lessons should be. But to me, it just comes off as completely condescending. They arrange these meetings, or they run these meetings like they're, lessons. In other words, like they're the teachers and you're the children. And it's like, no, that's not, I'm not a child. Like, why can't we just, talk about, the subject matter of the meeting, and then I can get back to doing what actually matters, which is, trying to educate and inspire my students. But instead, you're as a teacher, you're not really treated as like a worthwhile like educational professional who's capable of navigating and managing these decisions on your own. You're kind of just spoon-fed everything, and I don't really like to be spoon-fed. That's really not how I work. I'm much more independent than that. So I could go off over and over and over again about how shitty it was to teach in the public school system, but I'll save you the diatribe unless you want to hear it, because I got stories. Where can I get the top you're wearing right now? I'm assuming you're talking about the hat. I got this hat from, I think it's called funnyshirts.org. Either Funny Shirts or Funny T-shirts. I think it's funnyshirts.org. And you can literally like I got this custom made. You can get whatever you want printed on this type of hat, and they'll make it for you and send it to you. And I don't remember it being super grossly expensive either. I mean, this is like a cheapo sort of trucker hat type of hat. It's not like, a super high quality thing. It's got like it's not custom, it's not a fitted hat. It's got like the custom, adjustable, snappy, strappy thing in the back. So, yeah, it's, not super expensive, not super high quality, but it does do what I wanted it to do, which is it draws attention and it sparks discussion. Even in my own life, like I'll literally go to like the Home Depot wearing this hat, and people will come up to me and say like, oh, do you teach chemistry? And then I can be like, oh yeah, I used to, but now I'm a YouTuber, and here's my business card, and this is my channel. And and they'll talk about their experiences. Like there was this one time where I talked with a middle-aged couple. We were both waiting for our food at Firehouse Subs, and because I was wearing this hat, it struck up a conversation. And we talked about, like their son, for instance. Like they mentioned that they have a son who's majoring in chemistry, and it's like, oh, cool, what year is he? Oh, he's a junior. I'm like, okay, well then he's probably solid on his Gen Chem and doesn't need my help. But just in case he might need to brush up on things, here's my business card. This is my YouTube channel, and so this hat has had a profoundly positive impact on my on my interactions, like my actual like interpersonal interactions with people, like when I got in public. So yeah, I love it, man. I love this hat. Make chemistry great again. Which of course raises the question, was chemistry ever great? I don't know. It's just a silly catchphrase. So I don't really think it's super productive to like digest the or to dissect the quote or the phrase to try to come up with some deeper meaning. To me, it's just like it's a silly hat. It draws attention, and that's really like all the further it needs to go. Like we don't have to make any more of it than it is. So looking at the chat some more. It's for the message. Yeah. I mean, I do like the idea of like improving chemistry as people understand it. Like I think people, in some ways, the topic of chemistry has had a little bit of resurgence, and I would probably attribute that mostly to Breaking Bad. Honestly, I mean, Breaking Bad is widely regarded by a whole lot of people, myself included, as the best television show of all time. And I think, it kind of made chemistry like kind of cool, and so I'm sure there were a lot of people that like had a like a newfound fondness for chemistry, after watching, consuming all 5 seasons of Breaking Bad. So in that sense, I mean, like I just love that show. Like even my parents, who have nothing at all to do with chemistry, I'm like, listen, like you got to watch this, and they watched it and they fell in love with it, and they would agree, like it's their gold standard for television. It's like, okay, this new show that came out, is that pretty? Is this a good show? Well, I mean, it doesn't really compare to Breaking Bad. Like Breaking Bad is like the measuring stick. It's like the ideal, like the gold standard for television. So how is life in South Carolina? It's good. It's good. All time, maybe a bit far though. Okay, that's a debate I'm willing to have. What TV show in your mind is better than Breaking Bad? I mean, some people say Game of Thrones, which I've actually never gotten into it. I've never gotten into Game of Thrones. So maybe it is better than Breaking Bad. I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't like it as much because I have the science background. But I thought House of Cards was a pretty good contender for like a really, really like epic like TV show that would go down in history as like one of the best shows. But when it got time, like when the 5th season came out, it just started going way downhill with like really silly twists and plot lines. And then, when the 6th season came out, after like they fired Kevin Spacey's ass, like House of Cards was just awful. Like I couldn't even watch it. Like I literally couldn't. It couldn't captivate me at all. Like I would have to force myself and strap myself to a chair to watch the 6th season of House of Cards. It was so bad. They really did that show like, they did that show so dirty. Kathy says, Breaking Bad changed the opinion of the chemistry teacher. Suddenly I am cool, funny. Yeah, Kathy, that's cool. And you can play that up too. Like you can have like Breaking Bad themed, things in your classroom, and it's a good way for you to kind of relate to the students. It's like or middle ground, like a wavelength that you can kind of get on with them. Like I think that's a great thing. Like anything that sort of bridges that gap between like pop culture and science, I think is amazing. And the fact that Breaking Bad was able to do that, with the plot, with the character development, with the cinematography, I mean, like the music, like everything about that show, in my mind, is phenomenal. It's just my opinion, though. Excuse me. Kathy says, I love The Sopranos. Yeah, that's a good point too. Like it's funny because like, I talked about Game of Thrones, which is an HBO show. You're talking about Sopranos, which is an HBO show. I've never had HBO. So that's why like I'm so clueless when it comes to these shows. Maybe I should give Sopranos a chance. I think I should probably give Sopranos a chance if I ever can find a way to get my hands on it without having to pay for HBO. I know that HBO recently, like I think it was part of like the whole pandemic thing, they recently for a pretty long period of time, they made a lot of their shows available to stream free on various platforms such as Amazon Prime and Hulu. And I actually started getting into the show Silicon Valley, which is an HBO show. I was watching it through Hulu, and it was great. I enjoyed it. My wife didn't really enjoy Silicon Valley so much because she, according to her, she thought that, it was kind of just the same thing over and over again. It's like, oh no, their company's in trouble, and oh no, they find a clever way to get out of it, and oh no, their company's in trouble, and oh no, they find a clever way to get out of it. She's got a point, but I still find that show very entertaining. I still like that show, Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is awesome also. Yeah. It's funny. Like I think T.J. Miller is so funny. That guy, what's his name? Ehrlich Bachman. He owns his house is called for those of you who don't know, this isn't really a spoiler, but T.J. Miller, who has been in various movies and things. He's been in She's Out of My League. He's been in Get Him to the Greek and also that kind of stuff. T.J. Miller plays this character in Silicon Valley called Ehrlich Bachman, and he owns this house and he calls it the incubator. And what he does is he allows these kids, or maybe not kids, but like young adults who are entrepreneurial. He allows them to live in his house and work in his house under the condition that he owns a certain percentage. I think it's usually like 10% of their company. So he'll give them 10%, or he'll give them room and board in his house in Silicon Valley, which from what I understand is really expensive to live there, in exchange for like an ownership stake in their company. And he calls it the incubator. It's funny, man. Like it's a good show. If anybody has HBO or in the stream and you've never seen Silicon Valley, like I would highly recommend it. It's funny. What else? 5 viewers, raise the roof. Although my screen says 3, so it looks like those other 2 hopped out. So a gentleman asks, you may not be the best person to ask this to, but what's the difference between South and North Carolina? Well, they are sort of geographically adjacent. So South Carolina is south of North Carolina. They have, they share a border. I just don't understand. I don't know what you mean by, what's different about them. I would say North Carolina probably has a lot more attractive locations. Like they have a lot of beautiful natural things. Like for instance, Christmas vacation, my wife and my daughter and I traveled to North Carolina. There was a state park called Grandfather Mountain State Park. There's this mile-high swinging bridge that we walked on. It's kind of terrifying, but it was fun, and we got some amazing photos with the mountains and stuff behind us. So I would say North Carolina probably has a lot more attractive geographical features. They have ski resorts and things like that. We actually did snow tubing. So my daughter, how old would she have been? Barely, she was maybe 15 months old, and we put her on a lap and sat on a snow tube and just went flying down the hill in North Carolina. So that's one difference. There's 2 different governors. I don't know. I know that the governor of South Carolina, Governor McMaster, is Republican. I don't know about the governor of North Carolina. I know South Carolina, I don't have the entire sort of electoral map of every United States election memorized, but South Carolina for the past several elections, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that South Carolina for the past several presidential elections has been red. They've voted Republican. Whereas North Carolina, it's kind of up and down. I'm pretty sure in both 2008 and 2012, North Carolina went to Obama, and then in 2016, North Carolina went to Trump, I believe. So I would say there's probably more political diversity in North Carolina than there is in South Carolina. Other than that, I really don't know much more in terms of differences between the two and all that stuff. So I hope that answered your question. Let's see. Guy says, fun fact, in New Zealand there's an island named Disappointment Island. Oh, interesting. I wonder what's such a disappointment about it. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. But okay, so it's like 5:30 here. I still got plenty of time to sit and chat with you guys about whatever you want before I have to hit the road. It's true. No, I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, I'm just interested. I'm interested. I'd like to know how it got that name. Fun fact, Kathy says, I grew up in a place called Corona in California, like coronavirus. Yeah, that's an unfortunate name for a town. It's also unfortunate for like the Corona, the beer company, because Corona is a pretty good beer. I mean, I haven't had a drink in years, but when I used to drink beer, Corona was a good one. You put a nice, you get like that Corona Extra or that Corona Light. You cut out a lime wedge and you stick the lime wedge into the beer, and then you plug the bottle with your thumb, and you have to do it with a glass bottle. Nothing else. You can't do it in a can. It has to be a glass bottle. Come on, glass is the best. So once you got that lime wedge in there, you plug it up with your thumb, and then you invert it. You hold it upside down, and the lime will float to the top, or I guess the bottom of the bottle, which is now suspended at the top, and then you gently pull it back upright, or turn it back upright, and then gently let your thumb off. It'll release a little bit of pressure, and you have kind of mixed the lime flavor in there. And oh man, I just remember that, especially like on a hot day, or in like a hot tub on a cruise ship, just having a cold Corona with lime in hot weather is just, it's so refreshing. So refreshing. So I heard something from somebody about how their sales have dramatically decreased as a result of the unfortunate naming of COVID-19, but I don't know. I'm sure as a company too, they probably feel like they have like somehow more of an obligation than other beer companies to like do charitable things, related to COVID-19 simply because of the name. But it's just funny how that works. It's funny how important names really are. There's this book that I honestly need to brush up on that I read cover to cover multiple times before the birth of my daughter. And it's called The Expectant Father. And there's a page, like the book has like the main sort of, the main ideas, the main chapters and things. And then they'll also have like these sort of one-off stories, that are not super relevant, but they're also interesting reading material. And there, you got to the chapter on, or the section of the chapter on, it comes time to name the baby. What's a good process by which you can narrow down the list of names to name your baby. And, the one-off article or the one-off sort of passage was like, what's in a name? And it turns out a lot's in a name. Like, names are actually really, really important. There's actually like a disproportionate number of dentists that have the first name Dennis. Really important. It reminds me of this Jim Gaffigan joke. He's talking about how great bacon is. He's like, bacon is so good that we wrap other foods in bacon to make it better. And he's like, you can't tell me that the success of Kevin Bacon isn't somehow related to his name. So I don't know what you're asking. You just said the word really. Was it the dentist thing? Yeah, like that's actually true according to the Expectant Father by Armin Brott. That's the name of the book. Yeah, like names are important. It's also important, to watch out for, as a parent, it's important to watch out for initials. Like you don't want, the child's initials to spell out something like WTF or ASS or, anything like that. So yeah, names are actually very important, and my second daughter, who is still, cooking, she's due in October, early October. We don't have a name for her yet. We're sort of, like every time that the topic comes up, like, oh, what should we name her? It's like, oh God, I can't think about that right now. It's so hard. It almost feels like we use the best name that we could come up with on our first daughter, and I really don't want to think of it like that, but it kind of seems like that. And but we really have to get cracking pretty soon. The third trimester is coming up very soon, so like we have to get cracking on coming up with a name. And my wife and I are sort of in different schools of thought about this. I prefer names that are kind of more general and more mainstream. Meanwhile, my wife is more into like names that are kind of unique or a little off the beaten path. So anyway, so Kathy is asking the question, I'm assuming you are an essential worker at your company. Your company is essential? Yeah, I mean, that is a very subjective category. I think, anybody who can provide a service that people will pay for is essential. but yeah, I have been deemed, my job site has been deemed essential. Not all of the employees that work at my job site have been deemed essential. There's a lot of like HR people, technical writers, people who can do their jobs from home, who have been, asked to, vacate the job site, and they have not yet been asked to come back to work. But as far as my line of work, the research and development that I do is considered essential, and I have not seen any, I haven't been laid off or furloughed or anything like that. It has sort of affected me in sort of a roundabout way, in the sense that a lot of our customers have sort of shut down or they've slowed down. So there hasn't been a whole lot of work for me to do. So I've honestly, this kind of sounds bad, but when I've cleaned my lab inside and out, it's spotless and everything's organized, everything's caught up, all my record keeping is caught up, and I'm like, I have to find something to do. So, sometimes I'll just bang out a script for my next YouTube video, or, I'll improve my thumbnail images, or, I'll reach out on social media or email people for collaboration requests, like all this stuff, like I'm doing while I'm at work, just to keep myself busy, because I can't just sit and do nothing. I can't just sit and scroll mindlessly through my social media feeds. I have been doing a lot of reading, like I'll brush up on my general chemistry, my organic chemistry, and things like that. Yeah, it's been a little slow at work, but it's sort of picking back up. I'm back in the lab now after riding a desk for a few weeks. I'm back in the lab where I belong, because I don't like that. I don't like I like having more things to do than time to do them. I like always being busy. I like never, being caught up. I know that's kind of weird, but I like always have something to do. It makes the day go by faster. I feel like I'm in my element more when I'm more busy, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously I don't want to drown in a mountain of work and then get so unmotivated that it's just like this positive feedback loop of it getting worse and worse and worse, but I think there is sort of a happy medium between, not enough to do and way too much to do. And I would consider myself more on the too much to do side in terms of what I like. I like things to be busy and happening. I've never noticed that this channel has 15 million views. Yeah, I didn't know that either. Yeah, I didn't know that. But it should have more, honestly. I've been doing this off and on since 2010 when I was in college. It's been like 10 years. Had I uploaded consistently over the course of those 10 years and done more on social media and done more outreach and more educational stuff, if I had been more consistent, oh man, I would be killing it in terms of viewership. And but there are a lot of very complex, very sensitive, and very personal reasons why I have taken very, very long breaks away from YouTube. And at this time, I don't want to get too specific about that. Perhaps maybe I'll open up more about, why I have really long periods of time where I just don't upload. I'm basically a ghost on the internet, don't do anything. But yeah, those reasons are kind of personal, and I don't know. I think I will eventually open up about them. I think I will eventually sort of talk about this and sort of feel more comfortable with it. But right now, I'm just not super comfortable. I mean, the guy says no need to explain. Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, and I'm not trying to imply that you're trying to like to get like sensitive personal stuff out of me, but I know all you said was like 15 million views. That's great, and this is all me kind of going off on a tangent. But yeah, I do think that one day I'll sort of come up with an explanation, as to why there have been such long periods of time where I just don't upload anything. But anyway, all right. Well, you know what? I'm pretty close to 5:45 p.m. here, so I'm gonna start heading home. Hopefully there isn't a lot of traffic. I can just head home, enjoy my evening. We're going to go to a bar that serves the best burgers that I've had in town. I haven't lived here very long, so I don't really know if it's exactly the best burger in town, but it's the best burger that I have enjoyed in this city since moving here. Plenty of room, plenty of opportunity for other burger places to compete. But right now, this one's the top dog. So imagine if your car crashed on camera. That's not going to happen. I mean, well, okay, I don't have a crystal ball, but the only way that could happen is if the other driver messed up. That's not going to happen due to my driving. And also, the other thing to understand is that the roads on which I'm driving are not high speed limit, and they're not highly populated. Like, there's very, very little traffic. If I was driving on like the interstate doing like 75, 80 miles an hour right now, yeah, I wouldn't be streaming. But on these roads in, a small city, on the west side of the small city in South Carolina, in which I have literally a 7-minute commute from home to work and vice versa, I feel pretty safe. But I do appreciate your concern. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the concern, which you have evidenced by your frowny face. So thank you for your concern. I do appreciate it. I just drove past a police officer. I think I was speeding a little bit, but it doesn't look like he's gonna come after me, so that's good. Wow, can you imagine if I got pulled over by a cop on live stream? That would be kind of cool, actually. I mean, obviously it wouldn't be cool to like, pay a ticket if I had to, but it would be an interesting exchange, live streaming, during a traffic stop with a police officer. I've never recorded or streamed an interaction with a police officer before. I only have like a very small number of interactions with police officers in my life, and most of them have been very civil, very pleasant encounters. Most of the time, it's just a traffic violation. Either like I had a tail light out, or like I did something, like I was speeding, or I did something that I knew was a traffic violation. And what the strategy that has worked for me was, just telling the officer immediately that I understand, like I chose to violate the rule, and obviously that was the wrong decision because here we are. So that's what it is. I think if you're just brutally honest with them, and you take responsibility for your actions, then I think most police officers, I think, would respond pretty well to that, because that's been my experience. That has been my experience. There was one encounter that I had with a police officer that was not pleasant. I'll tell you what happened briefly, because I do have to get going very soon. But all right, man, take care. Guy needs to go to sleep. All right. So this encounter that I had with a police officer. So I'm not a big drinker, right? But some of my friends back in my hometown are, and so I actually visited my hometown for a weekend, and they all wanted to go out drinking. And I said, okay, perfect. I'll drive all, because I was driving a PT Cruiser. I could fit a lot of people in there. So I took them all to the bar, and we had a good time. They had pool tables, so that was kind of the one way for me to have fun, was to shoot some pool. And I never even had a sip. And my friends, they knocked back a few drinks. They were, getting loose, having a good time. And then this guy, who I wouldn't call him a friend, but he was like a friend of a friend, got very, very drunk. And when it came toward the end of the night, like when we were all about to leave, I pulled my car up next to the bar so that all of my friends and then this drunk guy could get in, and I can, just drive away. So I pull up, my car is literally in drive. It's not in park, it's in drive, and I have my foot on the brake. And everybody is in the car except for this one drunk guy, this one friend of a friend, right? And we're trying desperately to convince him, get in the car. Like, we're trying to, take you home, and but you're making it very difficult. And you know how people get when they get really drunk. Some of them are just, you can't reason. And these officers on foot come up and start flashing their like handheld flashlights in my face. And I can see that they want to come talk to me. So I roll down my window, hands on the wheel, and I say, hey, how's it going? And they're like, what are you doing parked here? You can't be parked here. I'm like, officer, I understand that. I'm not trying to be parked here. My car was actually in drive until you walked up. It's just, we're trying to get this gentleman, into my car so that we can, get out of here. He's like, and he's giving me all this stuff. He's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I don't really see how it's relevant for me to tell you what my destination is. I don't know you. And then that's kind of when he started giving me an attitude about, oh, well, when people aren't committing crimes, then they usually don't have a problem with, telling me where they're going. And I'm like, well, that's their decision. And my decision is that I don't really, I don't have anything to hide, but I don't have anything to show you either. And at this point, he knew that, I was coherent and in my mind enough, that I wasn't drinking. I wasn't even, I wasn't drunk. I hadn't even had a sip the entire evening, right? And so he's just kind of giving me all this attitude and just being a power hungry, jerk about it. And I just thought to myself, like, this is like kind of shitty. I mean, like, here you have me, I'm literally trying to do the right thing and to enable all of my drunk friends to do the right thing, which is not to drive, not to get behind the wheel of a vehicle when you're intoxicated. And I understand that being parked, here is like a traffic violation or whatever, but there weren't any cars behind me. I wasn't blocking any traffic. This was just a guy who wanted to give me shit for really no reason. It's like, you'd think that, somebody, giving these drunk people a way to get home safely, you'd think that kind of behavior would be encouraged in the law enforcement community. And I'm sure, to a large degree, I'm sure it is. But this one particular individual, was just kind of a power hungry jerk. And then, he really didn't like it that I didn't want to tell him where I was going. So, it's like, I don't know. I did my best to comply, but that doesn't mean you have to share every facet of your life story with them. You certainly, in America, you are not obligated to tell a police officer during a traffic stop where you are heading. And there are reasons for that. People impersonate police officers sometimes. Like, how do you know that's not just some creep dressed up as a police officer with the right decals and lighting on his car trying to follow you to your destination for some nefarious reason? You don't know that. It's not very likely, I understand, but you don't know that. And so that's why we have these, this thing called the Constitution. That's why we have things like the Fourth Amendment. That's why we have things like the Fifth Amendment. You have the right to plead the Fifth Amendment, and protect yourself from self-incrimination. So, that was just one anecdotal interaction, though. It is not a statement. I am not making any kind of statement on the law enforcement community as a whole. And I will say, I will repeat what I've said before, is that the majority of the interactions that I've had with police officers, even when I'm the one in the wrong, I committed a traffic violation, or I, was driving with a blown taillight or whatever. All of those interactions, most of them, the majority of them, have been very peaceful and have been very, very civil. So, but yeah, that one guy was kind of a jerk. So But, you know, what standard can we really hold people to? Like what standard can we really hold groups of people to? You know, you're going to find jerks in every line of work. You're going to find people who suck at their job in every line of work. You know, even scientists, even doctors. Like, there are people everywhere, you know, air traffic controllers. There are people in every line of work who suck at their job, and they all make up a very tiny percentage of the profession as a whole, you know? So I'm very reluctant to blame a profession as a whole for the actions of a tiny minority of people within that profession, right? I would never blame medicine or modern medicine as a whole for the actions of the tiny, tiny percentage of doctors that are guilty of malpractice. I would blame those individuals. I wouldn't blame the entire group, right? So I just think it's important to hold individuals responsible, like I'm trying to do. I'm the individual guy who gave me shit when he, you know, flashes flashlights in my face and, you know, basically, you know, got all upset when I refused to tell him where I was going, and, you know, tried to imply that I was committing some crime, even though all that I was doing is just driving my friends home safely and trying to get a belligerent drunk person into my car to get home safely. He was just being a jerk, but I hold him and him alone responsible for that. Now, look, if he like repeatedly, you know, caused a lot of problems, and then, you know, he had some supervisor who looked the other way, okay, well then I can start to maybe blame him too, you know. So I kind of understand, you know, that blame isn't necessarily exclusive to each individual person every time, but nonetheless, I think group responsibility is a dangerous concept. So, all right, well, I think I'm going to end the stream here. It looks to me like I don't have any viewers at this time, so I think this is a good place to stop. So thanks everybody who joined me. Not a lot of people in the stream, but it's kind of cool because then I could have like a more intimate conversation with you guys, almost like we're, you know, sitting on love seat in a sofa around a coffee table in our living room or something like that. So that's how I choose to interpret the low number of viewers. So for whoever it was that just hopped in here, I'm about to end it. So, but thank you for hopping in here. Lots more content in the future. Feel free to, if you're not subscribed, to smash that subscribe button. Like the video if you will, please. I would appreciate it. Also, you know, I'm on various social media platforms. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. And I have my own Discord server. I am assembling the masses into a Discord server that I think has very exciting possibilities. Perhaps we could do like group, you know, large scale, you know, video calling, you know, maybe some kind of lecture series, like some kind of Q&A session, like something really interactive I would like to do with that Discord server. So lots of exciting things. You can find links to all of them on the banner of my channel page, the image that says Ben's Chem Videos, your channel for chemistry lessons and tutorials. At the top of my channel page, on the bottom right hand corner of that image, you'll find the links to all of those social media platforms. So all right, thank you again and enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.